Hi, NBJV listeners. This week on No Boxes, Just Verses, we hit the road for a special edition of the show. We recorded live at the Harold and Carol Pump Foundation's Celebrity Fundraiser in Beverly Hills. It was such an incredible night supporting cancer patients and their families with care, dignity, and direct support. This annual gala brings together athletes and entertainers and advocates, all united for a cause that is dear to most of our hearts. We all know somebody who's suffering or has suffered from cancer. I even got to bring my family along. Two of my sons and my mother got to attend the fundraiser. So listen, instead of our normal studio setup, this week's episode is captured full and live with lots of energy, lots of buzz, lots of B-roll. So if you want to see the red carpet moments, the pictures, even some of the surprise celebrities that were in the audience, head on over to noboxesjustverses.com or to any of our social media pages, all of them also at No Boxes Just Verses, where you can get some of the videos and some of the pictures and live that moment with us. And special shout out to Dana Pump, David Pump, Leah Pump, the whole Pump family for putting together an amazing, magical night, again, raising money for cancer support and cancer patients. So in this edition of No Boxes Just Verses, you're going to hear from MLB All-Star and Senate candidate Steve Garvey, who was in attendance at this fundraiser. He's going to be sharing his journey of his life, lessons behind which shaped an amazing career, and then some of the songs that have really melded his leadership journey. It's a bit of Motown rhythm, some rock and roll swagger, and then the elegance of Bocelli. So let's put the pedal to the metal. This is No Boxes Just Verses on the road. Welcome to No Boxes Just Verses, the podcast where we take inspiring leaders and we look at their journey beyond the bios, beyond the titles, beyond the career successes, and we really get into what drives their leadership journey, all through the songs and the music that has motivated them. Each week, we take the lessons and we take the key songs and we meld them into their leadership journey in their playlists.
Let's put the pedal to the metal, let the top lean back. I don't know where we're going, I don't know what we're running to. I'm checking for you, how you feel about that. I think it's time we rendezvous.
And today, I am honored to be sitting here with the legendary Steve Garvey. Steve, welcome to No Boxes Just Verses.
Thanks, Shannon. This is going to be unique. I like the music theme too. And by the way, you know what a legend is? Somebody that's old.
Okay.
You know,
So we won't say legendary. We will say, well, iconic is worse, right? Is iconic better or worse than
I think
legendary?
it's better. I'll take that.
Okay. We are
like
here.
iconic for 10.
For 10? All right. We are here with the iconic Steve Garvey.
You're sweet. Thank you. Thank you. It's great being with you.
So I'm going to do a quick read of your bio because we always do that for our listeners, and then we're going to dive into your journey. Okay. So Steve Garvey is a former Major League Baseball first baseman, best known for his years with the LA Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. A 10-time All-Star and 1974 National League MVP, he was celebrated for his consistency, his durability, and his leadership, including holding the National League's record for consecutive games played. That was 1,207 to be exact. Garvey won 4 Gold Gloves, 2 NLCS MVP awards, and helped the Dodgers win the 1981 World Series. Over his 19-year career, he amassed approximately 2,600 hits. That's a lot of hits. A lot of hits. And a 2.94 batting average, and a reputation as one of baseball's most reliable and clutch performers. And we're going to get into all of these things in your bio.
I'm going to have to hire you to introduce me wherever I. Wasn't that great?
I thought it was very concise for a career that has so many accolades. It's actually hard to distill them down.
Well, you know, it's very similar to a lot of introductions, but and I hate to use this term, but it touches the bases from the commitment, love of the game, to performance, offense, defense, winning.
Yeah.
If you play a team sport, winning a world championship is the ultimate. And a lot of great players never had that opportunity, but I played in 5 World Series, beat the Yankees in '81 to be a world champion. And then through the grace of God, the skills that I was given, I think were developed and refined um, to create who I am off the field. And we know the foundation is, when we come onto this earth, we bring nothing with us. When we die, we take nothing, with us. But it starts with family. It starts with everything is learned. And then I think the foundation for all of our success comes from those early developmental years, that we're put in situations, we're in an environment, a culture created by our family and friends, parents, that leads to how we approach different chapters in our lives.
Well, let's get into your kind of origin story, and then we're going to dive into a couple of your leadership lessons that were really kind of mentioned in this brief bio. So, if I remember correctly, you were from Florida.
Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, you're from Tampa.
Yeah.
You spent a bunch of your life in California,
Yeah.
but you were from Tampa. So take us through kind of like those early stages, like you said, with your family and supporters, the lessons you learned there, and like what song most reminds you of growing up in Tampa?
Uh-oh. Well, parents are from New York, Long Island primarily. My father lived in Glen Cove and Hempstead, mother in Baldwin. And after the war, mom and dad were working in New York. When my mother's father had a great gas station on Route 27 that led out to the Hamptons, so it was a great location. And it was early January, and gas station takes 20 hours a day, and he was up to his elbows in grease. And his biggest client comes in and says, "Joe, you've been at this a long time. You need a break. I've got this motel in Tampa, Florida. I can't get down there. Why don't I trade you the motel for the gas station and, get out of this weather?" Well, there's always a reason. Motel was about 3 miles off Route 301, which led from New York to Tampa. And my grandfather at that moment made, a knee-jerk decision, and he threw the grease rag at him and said, "Harry, you got it." Called my grandmother up and said, "May, we're going to Florida." And she said, "You didn't tell me we were going on vacation." He says, "No, I traded the gas station." She said, "What? You did what?"
Wow.
But, she trusted my grandfather, and they called my parents up and said, "Come on, move to Florida with us, and let's start, a new life down there." And something happened at a Stuckey's or a Horns, one of those roadside hotels that had the 25-cent vibrating beds. And I was born in December of 48. And so the family threw out the anchor. I was raised in Tampa. And you look for pivotal points. The first 7 years, I was growing up like a normal kid. And then my dad and two gentlemen started the second Little League in Tampa.
Oh.
And it was going to start on, I think, around March 29th, March 30th. And, but on the 26th, my dad, who was driving a bus for Greyhound, came home, and I was an only child. 7 kids and 7 grandkids now, so it's God's little joke. 5 daughters, by the way. So he sits down and looks at me and says, "You want to skip school tomorrow?" And I go, "Wow, you never said that to me before." "And what do we do?" And he said, "Well, I've got a charter to pick up the Brooklyn Dodgers from the Tampa airport and take them to St. Petersburg to play the Yankees in a spring training Grapefruit League game." Now, my dad was a Dodger fan. My mother was a Yankee fan. She gloated a lot because they had won 6 straight World Series until the Dodgers won in 55. And I said, "Do you think I could bat boy tomorrow or something?" He says, "Well, we'll see." And I said, "Can I be excused?" He said, "Yeah." I went in, and I had started saving Topps baseball cards. And I had 2 Have a Tampa cigar boxes. Tampa was big on Cuban cigar. And I had about 60 or 70 baseball cards, and I had a Pee Wee Reese and a Gil Hodges and a Snyder and a Campanella and a Jackie Robinson. And I brought them out, and I said, "Dad, these guys?" And he said, "Yep, those are the boys of summer." And the next day we got the bus, drove to the tarmac of Tampa International Airport. The Dodgers were the only team that had their own plane. McKay O'Malley won. And about 8:15, in one of those gray peach mornings, in Florida, it banked in the distance, and it landed, came by us, and had Dodgers on the side and baseball on the tail. Pretty heady stuff for a kid who was going to play his first baseball game, 4 days later. And Dad said, "Come on." So we stood in front of the bus, and the plane pulls up. There were no concourses back then. There was a ramp that went up to these DC-7. And off the plane came Gil Hodges and Neil and Ferrello and
Your idol.
and
These people
my
you
idols.
idolize.
I mean, these were the guys that,
Right.
they were they got a baseball card.
Right.
You got to be pretty special.
Right.
Which I would find out later, my first year with the majors. But so I was there with my baseball cards. My dad was standing next to me, and they started to come off and come onto the bus. And I would say, "Is this Mr. Reese?" That was him, and I'm 7, almost 8. And finally, the last 2 guys were Roy Campanella and Jackie Robinson.
Oh, my God.
And Roy had just won his 3rd MVP, and Jackie was Jackie, so they were bigger than life. And I'm looking at them, and they stop. And Jackie Robinson looks at me and says, and I had a brand new glove on my belt because it was $9.95 back then. My mother said, "Don't lose it. That's all we can afford." So I put it on my belt. He said, "You play baseball, son?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Little league?" "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, you listen to your coaches and you work hard and play hard, and maybe someday you'll be a Dodger." And I looked at him and I said, "Yes, sir." And then Roy Campanella looks at my dad. Dad had the beautiful gray Greyhound outfit on. Said, "Joe." He said, "Joe, is he a pretty good student?" And I go, how could he ask my dad that question? Because I was a hyper kid, which transcends to ADHD, in our generation. So my dad, I said, "Dad, cover it for me." He said, "Well, he's having a little trouble in school, concentrating." And it was really auditory processing at that time.
Yeah.
And he said, "We're working with his reading every night. And he's starting to make progress." And then Mr. Campanella said, "Well, you can practice all you want and, be a good ball player, but you got to have options. So you got to do good in school."
Wow.
And I said, "Yes, sir, I will." And back then we wore these flat tops, with the butch wax and everything. Remember, it was
I've seen
40
the
years
pictures.
later.
I've seen the pictures.
That's right. In Old Life magazine.
Right.
And he patted me on the head and he looked at it as if, "Ow, that's prickly right there," So we got on the bus and drove about 45 minutes to Al Lang Field, which was the Yankees and the Cardinals training site. And the players were getting off the bus and grabbing their duffel bags. And the clubhouse man came out. He says, "Come on, you got 25 minutes. Get dressed. You got to get up for batting practice." And he looked at me. He says, "You want a bat, boy?" And I looked at my dad and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, get the bat bag out and the ball bag and set everything up over there. And I'm going to check on you in a few minutes." And so the bat bag was this big on me, and Dad helped me drag that out with the ball bag. And I was setting up the bats and the balls, and I heard, and I looked, and the Yankees were taking batting practice, but it was Mickey Mantle in the batting cage, hitting towering home runs into Pinellas Bay. And Mickey was every boy's idol.
Right.
6 foot, muscles on muscles,
Right.
ran to first base in about a second and a half. And I'm watching him and I hear, "Son, you want to play catch?" And I turned around, it was Gil Hodges, the great first baseman. And about my dad's size, but he had always been known as a quiet giant kind of a guy, first baseman. So I said, "Yes, sir." And I struggled, got my glove off my belt, and he tossed a ball to me and I caught it. And he tossed another one with arc and I caught it. And I'm thinking, "Mr. Hodges, I'm starting Little League on Saturday.
Right, you haven't even started.
Yeah, you can throw it a little harder," because Dad and I, practiced every day. I lost 2 baby teeth, learning how to field. And so he tossed a couple more, and then I heard, and I looked, and boom, and the ball hits me in the chest. Somebody had yelled at Gil, and he had tossed it, didn't see it. It wasn't hard. And he came running over. He's a great family man. And, "You okay, son? You okay?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And in the first teaching moment outside of my family, he says, "Were you looking at Mickey Mantle hitting that home run?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Son, we're the world champions." I said, "Yes, sir." And we'll do it again. We'll do it again. Yeah. You come to the dance and dance with the one who brought you type
That's
of
right.
thing.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
So I bat boyed that day and sat on the bench and listened to these great players, world champions. And actually, it was a moment where Jackie Robinson had got his bat, and he turned around, he went to sit down, didn't see me, and literally sat on my lap. And as soon as he felt me, he jumped up, and he goes, "Son, you okay?" And I'm thinking, Monday show and tell, Jackie Robinson sound. And it doesn't get any better than this, right? And that day, I think we found out they won. We looked at old Sporting News.
Okay.
And about 12 years ago, my wife and I did a book called My Bat Boy Days, because that was the first day that I got a chance to bat boy for a major league team.
Wow.
And they liked my dad so much, they would come over for 3 days from Dodgertown, Vero Beach, and be in the Tampa area. And so for 7, 8 years, I would bat boy 2 or 3 times each spring for the Dodgers. And then the fellow that gave dispatched these sessions told my dad, "Joe, anytime any other team, wants to charter, we'll give it to you." So I bat boyed for the Yankees a couple times, Detroit. But I've always said that, growing up with my idols, and there was a transition from Brooklyn to LA in, I think it was 58. And my mother always said, you can't talk and listen at the same time.
Okay.
And which was so true. So I would listen to them talk about the game. So at a pretty young age, I was picking up things that I would practice that would make me, even at a young age, a better ball player in my age category and with my peers. And ironically, 12 years after that first day at Michigan State, I was drafted in the first round by the Los Angeles Dodgers. So those, say, 3 or 4 chapters from being basically in elementary school to middle school, going from Little League to Pony League, and then going to high school and playing American Legion and preparing me for, and I played all 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball for my first, 3 years in high school. And then I had to make a choice, because back then you'd go fall football, basketball, baseball, right?
Yeah.
And I remember we had our last game a day before Thanksgiving, and then Monday I came out for basketball, and the first game was 5 days later, and I was like the third guard, and I got in a minute before halftime, and I stole the ball, and I looked, and there was 5 seconds. I dribbled once more and shot it, and it swished, from 43 feet.
Wow.
And I looked at our side, and everybody was frozen. I had made the basket for the other team.
Oh, no.
And so,
Oh,
we come in, it was in the South, the Southern coach. And we're down by 5 points. So he gave the team, speech, and then he said, "Everybody out but Garvey." And I thought, oh my gosh. And he sat down with his son. He said, "You're all-state, football player and honorable mention, and you're going to be drafted in baseball. And, you're going to wear yourself out. Why don't you think about stopping basketball and just starting to work on baseball?" And I said, yes, and I talked to my parents, and it was so true, because, I needed some time off because I was playing these sports all the time.
Yeah.
And it was great leadership discussion on his part, because he could have used me. I was the third guard.
Yeah.
But I've always said, and there's a big movement now on boys and girls playing dual sports, right? Because by the time I got to college, and I went to Michigan State, and I had about 20 offers, but Duffy Daugherty and Danny Litwell as the coaches allowed me or wanted me to play 2 sports, because they didn't, they could split the scholarship. Right? So, and I went to, people say, "Why'd you go to Michigan State?" I said, I got tired of the heat, number 1, and the humidity on Friday nights in Florida.
Yeah.
But number 2, I got a chance to play 2 sports at Division I level, and the education was going to be a good, strong Big Ten education.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd have 4 seasons, different culture, different environment. Yeah. And as I look back, it was a good decision for me. And then about July 2nd or 3rd of 1968, I'm drafted the first round by the Dodgers, and I get to my professional starting line in quest of getting to the starting line in the major leagues. And that's how I approached whatever I did, starting as a teenager, one step at a time, not thinking about being a major league player when my real goal was making the high school team and starting, and then getting a college scholarship, and not getting too far ahead. I think that's the biggest problem in the last 25 to 30 years, is the evolution of traveling teams and the emphasis on being a major leaguer, or being in the NFL, or being in the NBA, and forgetting about the process that it takes. Instead of being good, that you can prepare yourself to take the step to being very good and all-star and maybe a Hall of Famer type thing. So I think the most important thing, and my parents were very good at keeping me within myself, trying to stay within myself, trying not to think too far ahead. And what that does is when you do fail, you strike out at the end of the game, or you miss the shot or miss the tackle, you're able to put it in better perspective.
Gotcha.
And if there's too much pressure on having to make every play, having to make every pitch, then most of the time, you're going to get disillusioned, you're going to get worn out, you're going to want to be a kid, or you want to live your teenage years, and sometimes looking too far ahead derails you.
That's completely how it works now, as you know, and there's a huge emphasis on you focus on, your sport. You start at a very young age. You put in, what's the magic, Malcolm Gladwell's magic number of hours you put in to be, great at that sport. And that's the formula right now. I mean, I have kids that go to, a sports school. And it's very concentrated on, being great at that sport. Some people obviously will do a couple of sports. I had a kid that did too. But most are really concentrated on whatever their sport is. And that's just the formula. I mean, my middle child said to me, he played soccer. He started in football, was good at it, but didn't love it. And he's like, Mom, I'm never going to go anywhere with this. He was a running back. He was like, I'm good. He's like, I'm the second running back on a really good team, getting home with Tom Brady. But he's like, this is not what I want to do. And so he's like, I'm going to go play soccer. And we were like, okay. He was really good at it. But by the time it was time for him to go to college, he said, I don't want to be an athlete in college. He's like, I like it, but I don't love it like that. And so he plays the in college right now, he plays the club and intramural. And it's fun for him. But that pressure, he knew it wasn't for him. And he was able to kind of articulate that. But for so many kids, that's really hard.
Well, I think you and your husband taught him to reason. I think, I mean, we hear common sense a lot now, but that's the thread, I think, throughout generations of learning how to make good decisions. And as we as parents, and Candace and I do this a lot, there is no gray area. There's a black and a white. If you try to rationalize that there's a gray area here, and maybe it's not. Either it's the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. And if you're trying to make a decision on going forward, it's always great to be a collaboration between mom and dad, and even our other siblings too. What do you think? I mean, we learned as time went on, and where I said I'm the only child, ended up having 5 daughters and 2 sons. And God's little joke was the 5 daughters, So, and sometimes when I'm saying my prayers, I say, could you give me a sister? Because everybody used to always say, would you like a brother? I said, I can get guys out of the house to play. I would have loved to have a sister to teach me those things that would have made the interaction and social play a little easier. But it worked out. But I think when we talk about the most important team in our lives, it's our family.
It really is.
And I will always look back, and even though I didn't have the siblings, I had good friends. We had good family friends. And they also were very important in becoming a Christian at an older age than most people start, because my parents, even though they weren't exactly practicing. My mother was a Lutheran, my father was a Catholic. And then a family moved in from New Jersey. And they had a son, an only child too. And he had played sports up in New Jersey at the Catholic school, big Catholic schools in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And so they asked me to come to Mass with them one morning. And then, Joe and Millie, why don't you come too? And they said, sure. They weren't against going to church. It just wasn't something that we did consistently. And that began, a love and falling in love with the Catholic religion, being Christian, and making that an important part of my life, the foundation.
Yeah.
So when I look back now at that early age, if I would say, developmental age up until my mid-teens was when was really the foundation of the rest of my life.
And that's so interesting. You like looking back on it, a lot of your skill sets. Because, for example, you are you're touted as for your consistency. Like you're in the clutch, you're consistent. Is that the type of thing where you think that can be learned, or do you think that started to become innate for you because of how you were brought up and your community?
I think it's important on how you're taught and how you're coached.
Okay.
To carpe diem, seize the moment. Do you want to be up there when the game's on the line? And if you fail, so be it. They'll remember the pitcher that got you out, probably, right? And but it can be habit forming, because if you do get up there and you do win the game, you realize how it's done, right? And the mindset it takes. It starts from the greatest computer ever invented, which is our brain. Thank God. And the ability, the process to start to learn how to win and to learn how to be in the moment to do that, how to block things out, how to compartmentalize. And I think that's why I was so consistent, because I was able to focus and stay in the moment when 50,000 people, were cheering against me on the road or for me. I mean, a lot of guys get nervous when the crowd's cheering because they feel the pressure of having to get a hit. I wanted to be up there because I wanted to be the hero. And I saw a movie recently, Troy, with Brad Pitt.
Oh, yeah.
And early in the movie, he talks about, if you don't want it, if you don't want to get into the battle, they'll never remember your name. So if you think about that, it talks about you've got to go do it. You've got to try it. And I can look, there's always a moment in our lives that's a pivotal point, whether it's a relationship, whether it's business, whether you worked hard for something and it came to fruition, or it came from nowhere and it became your destiny. I had finally come up with the Dodgers in September 1st of 1969, bring up minor league players, and we all came up. And then it took me about, I was up and down in 70, 71, 72, I was with the Dodgers. Then Ron Say came up, and I had a shoulder separation playing football, and I was a third baseman, and I couldn't quite throw the same, didn't have the velocity. So nobody wants a wild arm third baseman, and who was developing as a hitter. But so Ron came up, very good third baseman. I became the 24th man on a 25-man team in 73. But Walter Alston, that same Walter Alston I saw the first day as a bat boy, got me to start pinch hitting. And all of a sudden, on June 23rd, 1973, I was leading the National League in pinch hitting. We played a doubleheader at Dodger Stadium, not far from here. And I got a pinch hit in the first game, even though we lost 1-0. And I'm sitting in my locker and I'm thinking, and, all that work, and 2:30 in the afternoon. And now I'm starting to understand the process of hitting, even though I had a lot of talent and it had carried me up there. Now I was able to think it. And all of a sudden, Walter Alston starts to come by. He walks, he stops, he looks at me. He said, "You ever play first?" I said, "Oh, sure." I played one game in Little League and one game in AAA. I had a bad hamstring, so I could only go from the first base dugout to first base. And he said, "Well, lefties are killing us." He said, "They got another one. The Reds have another lefty. Borrow a glove and play first tonight." And I said, "Okay." He looked at me and, "Don't trip over the bag, okay? Don't make me look bad." I said, "I promise," because I was defensive back. And borrowed a glove, practiced for 5 minutes, started the game, second play of the game. Billy Russell, who's excellent shortstop, goes to his right and turns and throws, makes a great play. It's going in the dirt, and I go down, do it like this, and I'm waiting for the ball to fly in the air, and I look, and it's right there.
It's still there.
Half a snow cone. I think, thank you, Lord. Get up, bottom of the second, get a double, drive in a run. Fourth inning comes, Davey Lopes, great second baseman, comes in, bare hands it, throws it. It's up in the air. I jump up to get it, tag the runner like I know what I'm doing, and ball stays in my glove. I think, this is easy, right? And it isn't. So we win the game, and I come in and I sat down in my locker, and this was really the biggest day of my career. And all of a sudden, Alston comes by, because he would come through the tunnel, come through our side of the locker room, and then go to his office. And I see him, and I'm waiting for him to say, "Nice game," and just kind of walks by. And Steve Yeager and I are sitting there, and we hear, "You're in there tomorrow." And I look at Yeager and said, "Is he talking to you, Yeager, or me?" He says, "I think he's talking to you, Garvey." Well, he was. And I started the next day and got 2 more hits, went on the road. And that was the beginning of 15 and a half years as a first baseman. Right. And I tell this story because for me, in my career, the pivotal point was that day, that moment when I said, I can do that.
You can do it.
I can play first, right? If I didn't, I probably wouldn't be here today, because there was rumors of me being traded and so forth. But that I seized the moment, carpe diem, right, and went out and had been preparing for it subconsciously. I thought I was, probably going to get some chance, maybe if I was traded, or maybe the next season playing somewhere, but that I had prepared for it. And that was the moment, and I seized it and executed, and is when they started to remember my name. And, and I tell that a lot because it's relative to 8 or to 80.
It really is.
Right.
Is that being open to those opportunities, those pivots,
Sure.
You have to be open to them. And then the other thing is that there are people who see stuff in you that you don't see in yourself.
Yeah.
And when those things happen, there's a bit of trust that you have to put into the fact that this person, because this person is now basically a mentor and a supporter of yours, right?
Sure. Right.
And so you have to sometimes just say, they know better than I know about myself. So I'm going to pivot. I'm going to give it this try. Absolutely. And oftentimes it changes the entire course of a career, of a profession.
Sure.
I've heard a lot of leaders say that they had that moment where that supporter came in and their career was going like this maybe, and then it went like that, and that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Delayed but not denied.
Exactly.
And I asked Walt Hulson, later in that season, then 74, I win the MVP and we go to the World Series, and things started to really happen rapidly after that. So what was it? He said, I saw you working every day, and then you were executing the role I gave you. And he said, I knew you could field. He said, throwing was your problem. He said, nobody throws less than the first baseman.
Right.
But the first baseman, along with the pitcher and catcher, handles the ball more than you had. You said you had a great club. And he said, I just thought it was time to give you a chance to either take that next big step or give you a chance with another team. Sometimes it just doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah.
But it always fit with the Dodgers because of going back to those bat boy days, so.
Right. Going back to the bat boy days.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, listen, I want to get into some of the things that you did after baseball, and then we're going to get into some songs.
Okay,
so
sure.
Let's talk about life after baseball. There's some business stuff, there's politics. Let's talk a little bit about what you decide to do next.
Sure. I think during my career, and once I started to become successful, I started to work with companies and corporations.
Yep.
Either as a spokesman or with friends. And I thought, it was 1974, and I started hearing about players who left the game and struggled because they didn't have another skill, hadn't developed a skill, hadn't prepared for it. And very few guys do, because it's something you've done all of your young life, and now you reach the ultimate, and it's a vacuum. So in order to do it well, everything has to be done within the vacuum of preparing, executing your career. But it's a short career. I mean, most careers, even nowadays, my last year I was 38, I was 39. Now, the average player retires at 34, 35, maybe.
Yeah.
That's had a long career.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons, economics one too. So I went up to a fellow named Bill Lau, who was president of PepsiCo Los Angeles. And I said, Bill, I want to work for you. And he goes, this was just after I became a first baseman the next year, but I won the MVP. So he says, what do you mean work for me? You're only off 2.5 months in the off season.
Right.
I said, I really need an understanding of business, consumer good business. He says, okay. He says, contact me 2 weeks after the season ends. And he said, well, let's put together a little program for you. I said, great. So we go to the World Series, play Oakland. Now it's, almost November, but I still contact him. And over about a month or 6 weeks, he put me with a chief marketing officer and some of the guys that actually created the juice, bottled the juice, delivered the juice, marketed it. They call it the juice, right? When it was the cola that was most important. Now it's the waters, right?
Yeah.
Or the energy drinks. Yeah. So got a pretty good fundamental education into the Pepsi business, and that laid the groundwork for the next off season, where I worked probably 2 days a week, doing things for PepsiCo. Created a tour with one of the big grocery chains where I'd come in on Saturdays and it was the Pepsi Challenge, which was one of the great marketing concepts ever, where you'd come and the Pepsi people, and behind the two, standards was a Coke and a Pepsi.
Yeah, you had to pick.
And they'd give you one you didn't know, and they'd say which one tastes better.
Yeah.
And Pepsi ended up with this happened thousands of grocery stores, and they had like a 64% favorable rating, right? So it was a great marketing campaign, and I headed up in Southern California. So
wow.
And then as time went on, I had a chance to work for great companies endorsing them. So then when the time came and I made the transition from Los Angeles to San Diego, I said, I've got 5 years left, and I want to be ready to make the transition from baseball to business, and created Garvey Marketing Group. I had a little office in La Jolla, brought in John Boggs, who's a phenomenal agent now, my very dear friend, to run it with me, and got my BA and business on the job, invested my own money.
Yeah.
But it was when the America's Cup was happening in San Diego, which was a huge marketing venture. And we were involved with that and other things. So by the time I retired in January of 88, I had Garvey Marketing Group to step into instead of from 11 o'clock to 2 during the season, now it would be full time. So I was prepared. And then within 2 years, we started Pace Sports with my very dear friend, Mike Corey, who's in the search business, in creating the first company that was able to place athletes within the business community. And we use the term after the cheering stops.
Okay.
And which is so very difficult for athletes or anybody, politicians, priests, whatever it is, who are in a business that is so much of a vacuum that when the time comes and you leave, you're almost nomadic in terms of trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
A lot of times it affects the family.
Yep.
It has extensions to it. So in our 7 years, we probably interviewed 1,200, 1,300 athletes, placed a significant number of those, worked with 50 human resource directors around the country. And eventually, a couple of the sports decided to take it over. When things are going so good, people think they can do it.
Right.
So, it was things like that led up to Garvey Media Group, in which we have helped companies in their branding and development and so forth. And then all of a sudden, at a very young age, I decided to run for the U.S. Senate, and
you continue to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Because even just the fact that during your baseball career, where you are, really, and you're like an iconic player. You're like, I'm going to go learn this business. I'm going to go and take these 2 months or whatever. And, I'll walk around the bottling floor. Like you're humble. You're obviously a very humble person. You didn't walk in there like, do you know what I do? No, you were like, I want to learn the business.
I've been blessed. I mean, life is God's gift to us. What we do it is our gift to Him. And I'm working on a book now. If we're given the 10 Commandments, what are the 10 commitments that we can live on a daily basis to give back?
Yeah.
And I've trademarked it, by the way.
You can't steal it.
That's right. Not that it's simple. So yeah, I think that life is continuing to reach. And I use this term, and my son, Ryan, kids me a lot because he was my deputy campaign manager and head of logistics and so forth on a great team we put together. And I've always said, this is the wind beneath my wings is to keep reaching and reach for the moon. And if you fall short, you'll be a star.
Yeah.
And he kids me every now and then. And he says, that's pretty corny, and I said, it is, but if you think about it, if you stop reaching, then you become complacent and you have a tendency, like taking your foot off the gas pedal.
Yeah.
You're going to start to slow down and you're going to lose that edge to find out really how good you can be and what stimulates you.
Yeah.
And you'll find out when you get a little older that you need to do that. And whether it's reinventing or finding something that really stimulates you, or something that gives you a sense of making a difference in life. And I think that's why I ran for the U.S. Senate in a very tough state that has been basically a one-party state for over a generation and a half. And that we're always best when we have two voices that respect each other and that talk about it. And inevitably, I always go back to President Reagan was my mentor. I got a chance to introduce him during his campaigns. And I remember I was invited back to a state dinner for the president of Ireland. And they come out, the president and Mrs. O'Reilly and Nancy Reagan and the president, they go to different tables. And everybody then joined in. And I thought I was way at the back of the room. And I ended up sitting with the president. And Tip O'Neill was at the table, and Sandra Day O'Connor, the great Supreme Court Justice, and the fellow that was shot when Reagan was shot during that fateful day of his first term.
Yeah. Was he like
Brady, I think?
Yeah, Brady.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
And Maureen O'Hara, the great actress. And I had Maureen on one side and Justice on the other. And I thought, wow, this is a great double date right here. And I was in spring training with Padres at the time.
Of course you were.
And they said, oh, you said that? Who'd you sit with? Well, President Reagan. But the most important thing was that when I sat down, the president called me Stephen. I told you about my days when I was broadcasting baseball for WHO in Des Moines, Iowa. And I said, well, sir, I think you alluded to it. And he said, well, there was this one game. It was between the Cardinals and the Cubs. And he starts out, and Tip O'Neill goes, oh, Ronnie, not again. I've heard this 1,000 times. And they look at each other. And throughout the dinner, they would banter back and forth. But if you knew of the two, if you had known them really personally or heard about them and their ideologies, they were 180 degrees. But what was important was they were willing to talk to each other and to reason with each other for the best interest of the country. Yeah. And I think when it was all said and done, I used that as a template for life and for running for the most difficult office in the country.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough state.
Yeah.
But what I do like about what you said, and I hope we can go back to the time of civility. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I didn't really understand the two-party system or any of that type of stuff when I was a kid. I just know that where I grew up in the suburb in Virginia, we had a lot of politicians who kids went to school with me, and I didn't question the fact that like every year our school field trip was to go to Congress. But that was because several people in my school had either parents that worked, somewhere in Congress or were congressmen. And DC was just a very civil place. You know what I mean? It was just a different time. And I hope we can, as a country, go back to where people can disagree, but for the most part, we all want the same thing. For the most part, I mean, there's fringes all over the place that are a lot, and I'm not talking about the fringes. I'm talking about most normal people.
Absolutely, people who just want to improve the quality of their life. For their family, but the key word was civility.
It was definitely.
Yeah. I talked throughout my campaign on civility and how important it was. And there's a good book about civility now. I wish I could give you exactly the title, but I think that's the foundation of common respect and civility and discourse.
So what's next for you? You've done so many things. Like what you could go and just sit on an island. This is not you, I know, and just put your feet up and just sit back and be like, I've had such a blessed life. You've got the grandkids. You've got a lot of kids now. You've got the kids, the grandkids. I mean, but what's next?
Well, I don't want to be an astronaut because that would take me away from the grandkids, who, by the way, are the most important things in life now. And Gigi and I, Candace, Grandma Garvey.
Yeah.
We need a flow chart for 5 girls. I mean, we've got Washington, Miami, Olivia Garvey's at KMBC and Channel 7 as sports anchor. We got Shauna, who's women's rights, created that. We are ultraviolet. So we're very blessed.
Yeah.
But Candace and I both believe in doing things that are going to make a difference and things that challenge us. And she was such a great part of the campaign because she understands the depth from a woman's perspective and having these 5 daughters and my one daughter who's got the Women's Rights Foundation, which is a little bit left of us, which is always fun talking. She says, at the end of the day, you're a feminist. She said, you like women, you respect women. You always talk about Adam and Eve and how, God created Adam until he found out that he was a hunter and a gatherer and he wasn't an organizer and wasn't getting things done.
Not a planner.
So he says, I got to take a rib and create, let's call her woman. And so things get done. And we always laugh about that, but I think it's so very important that, again, men, women come together, regardless of religion, race. And when that starts to happen and you feel the momentum, I wish I could say I could feel it right now, but is when we really will get back to being America as it was originally thought to be. And, that's why I ran here in California. Yeah. Because it wasn't easy. I could have gone back to Florida and probably won by 22%, But I love the state from that first day of September 1st, 69. And I remember it was the heartbeat of America. And it can be. It just needs leadership that's willing to work together. And it's easy to get up every day and look out and go, wow, this is fabulous. It'll change, but it won't change. Because it's people like you and me and everybody that I said, if I can get people to stand up and get into the game, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, I said, and to take what is given to them, the right to vote, right? Make good, solid decisions, participate in the process. That's what it's all about. We the people. I said, then I will have, I think, made a difference. And I think the state's pink now. Why not? With all my daughters, pink is. But we got 6.3 million votes, which is the most by a conservative. The interesting statistics, and everything's about stats now, is our campaign got the 4th largest number of votes last year in America behind Trump and Harris and Schiff. So with that currency, we're starting to really invest in people that think like we do about putting America first, putting our families first, faith, and God gave us free one choice. Let's choose to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, look, I love this. I think that means that you're not done. There's more in you. So we will continue to follow.
We have episode 2.
We can have episode 2 because we continue to follow you. But before we get out of here, because it's no boxes, we've learned a lot about your pivots and no boxes and your leadership that has carried you through from a very young age. So we're just going to wrap up with the Steve Garvey playlist, because we do give this to our listeners.
Yeah.
What is the playlist for you? Because our listeners, they actually listen to this. They get inspiration from this.
Yeah, well, I'm 76 now, so I've gone through. I remember when I first went to Michigan State from Florida.
Go Spartans.
Yeah, the Spartans. Yeah, go green. It was close to Motown, so almost all the music was from Motown.
Yeah.
And of course, it was the Four Tops and all that stuff. And then you had the song "Satisfaction" when I was a freshman, right?
Yeah.
That everybody got on because and trying to be the number one song of all time, the top 100. It's always subjective, but so I went from that, but grew up with basically rock and roll.
Yeah.
Beach Boys, those kind of things.
What's your favorite Beach Boys song? Probably hard to pinpoint one.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of them. And in Florida, we had surfing on the east coast of Florida a lot. So there was a little surfing trend there. It wasn't California, but it was there. But as time went on, I became probably more conservative in the music I listened to. And people say, "Did you have a walk-up song?" We didn't have a walk-up song.
You didn't do that. You didn't do that in the 70s.
It was da-da-da-da-da, Charge. Charge was my walk-up song. But I said if it would have been, it would probably have been Sinatra,
Well, I thought Fly Me to the Moon when you said that, when you made that comment. I was like, I wonder if he likes Fly Me to the Moon.
In fact, love all those things. But Bocelli is, I like Bocelli. And we just married off Olivia a month ago in Deer Valley, Utah, in St. Erickson. And I wanted the father and daughter dance to be, and Bocelli sings "It's Time to Say Goodbye."
Okay.
With Sarah Brightman.
Oh,
and, it's phenomenal. But then we thought it's a little too heavy. And Olivia and I, when she was a little girl, when she was 3, Candace was doing a show called Home and Family on the Family Channel. And they had 3 weeks of renewing vows. And one of them, Candace and I renewed our vows, and we did it. And it was a dance, and I had Olivia, and it was Butterfly Kisses. And
Butterfly Kisses.
it was you'll have to pull it up.
I'll have to pull it up.
Beautiful, you'll love it.
Do you know who sings it?
And we danced to Butterfly Kisses.
Do you know who the artist is? I can Google it though.
Yeah.
But Butterfly, it sounds like a beautiful.
It is. Oh,
song.
It just melts you.
Wow.
And we took a video, or the photographer did a video of Olivia and I just before we were going to walk and get in position to walk her down the aisle. It was on the deck at Stein Erickson Lodge. And I'm looking at her. I've got her in front of me. I'm telling how proud I am of her. And I say, and I remember the days when my tippy toes, because when she started walking, her heels never touched the ground. So we call it tippy toe. And that tippy toes would jump into my arms and give me butterfly kisses. And she started to get a little teary.
Oh my gosh, I'm like,
I said, no, you can't make up you can't mess up that makeup now.
I know.
Pay too much.
Come on, Steve, stop it.
But I did that video, and if you were to go to my Instagram,
we'll go.
Steve, and they put a Y in Stevie Garvey 6. We put it on. I think we have almost 260,000 views now.
Nice.
And I think any dad who has a daughter can understand that, and it's good preparation for when they do, And I should have put in there, by the way, I'm registered at Wells Fargo because I'll be paying for that wedding for a long time. Well spent, but it was a great investment. Right. He's a wonderful young man who played with the Rockies. But, it's music that Someone Like You by Van Morrison, I think is a song that anyone could listen to that talks about what he perceives that one person to be. And then obviously it's a woman and the journey. And the last debate we did, and it was just Adam Schiff and I, and you get 20 seconds at the end as a summation. And I said, this may be a little odd, but this journey for me reminds me of the song Someone Like You by Van Morrison. Because maybe it's because of you, the people of California, that I ran for. And I got a great response. It was truly from the heart. I don't think you ever see anybody running for an office that uses a song to relate to why he's doing it. But, and that's what it was all about. Knew it was the hardest race in America. Knew that 2-1 in voter registration. So you're starting a baseball game, 32 runs down.
Yeah.
And we came close at the end. But it was the journey that got people to stand up and now participate. We registered more people in all 57 counties. So we're going to keep the journey going somehow, some way. I'll let you know.
We'll do a part two.
TBD.
To be continued. This has been so much fun. I mean, again, your story really is one, lots of pivots, lots of resilience. But I do really, truly believe in the beginning when we read that bio, that consistent, like that's a consistent theme throughout your life. And I think that's what's made you a great leader.
Oh, thank you.
So
thank you.
Thank you for sharing your
You've been wonderful. Good.
Been great. Thank you.
That big lacrosse player.
Yeah.
Let me kiss your hand there.
He's a gentle giant. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to No Boxes, Just Verses. And if this episode moved y'all, please share it, rate us, follow the show on your favorite platform, and we can keep building our leadership playlists together. So you can find me, guys, on Instagram as Shannon Nash 1 and No Boxes, Just Verses on Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Shannon Nash ESQ CPA. You can also find No Boxes, Just Verses on LinkedIn. You can visit our website at noboxesjustverses.com. Finally, don't forget to check out the show notes. The show notes are super important because this is where the playlists will live. You will be able to get these playlists on Apple and Spotify. You'll also be able to follow up and see how to reach out to the guests, follow them, and support them. Until next time, I need you to stay unboxed. You come for the stories, but you stay for the playlists. I'm Shannon Nash, and I'm out.